Help.
Okay, so we have recording in progress. We're going to start, and if people join us as we go, that's great. I'm Meg Robbins, and I am on the board, which is quite a lively and large board of the Dales Pony Conservancy of North America. And we have with us today two guests who are going to be giving us an overview of training and breeding the Dales Pony for showing, which is going to be very different than anything that we're familiar with on this side of the pond, but something that people have a keen interest in understanding a little better. Anna is a DPS panel judge. She is also a DPS council member and a breeder of Dales ponies under the very well-known family prefix of NIPNA. Having competed Dales ponies at top levels under saddle herself, she and her family are now the proud title owners of the Hoy's Horse of the Year Ridden Dales Pony breeder for the last 5 years. They focus on breeding high quality, true to type Dales ponies with the temperament to turn their hoofs to all disciplines. And we have with us as well Jill Graham, who is probably also known to many of us as a contact for DPS, along with Ian. She's a DPS Life Vice President. She was a council member for over 30 years before taking over some of the Society General Administration work on a temporary basis to help with the transition to our new secretary. She has bred Dales ponies under the Cabroid prefix with her husband Ian until very recently, the DPS treasurer. She's done that for many years, successfully showing in hand, under saddle at the top level. She also breeds and exhibits Exmoor ponies and is a panel judge for both breeds. And on that note, our webinar today is going to be conducted by our guests, and when they are done, they will take questions and answers, and then we will invite folks who want to stay on to use this as a meet and greet for folks coming from different points across that. We'll just unmute and have some talk. So over to you.
So I'll just share the screen. We've got a presentation for you today. Just make sure I get all the right buttons. So, and then we'll switch that one on. Okay, so hopefully that's all worked for everybody and you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so I'll just say hi, I'm Anna. We are, and Jill will just say hello.
Hello, everybody.
No.
What we're going to do is we're going to tell you a bit about ourselves, a bit about like our story and how we got into the breed and what we've done and what the future for us with the breed is. And then we thought we'd take you through sort of starting really very basic with what is ridden showing, that what we do, the processes, turnout, and then the sort of the showing scene within the UK. So hopefully that will cover plenty bits, and then if you've got any questions at the end, we'll do our best. So yeah, we'll make a start. So as I said, I'm Anna. We breed under the NIPNA prefix. Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of the thing at the top. Oh, I can't. Okay, so we breed under the NIPNA prefix, we being my family. So that's my mother, Julie, who started with the Dales when we were very small. And then my sister, Laura, is also heavily involved as well. Our early beginnings, Julie got so Mum, she had thoroughbreds for years and years and years. Bred them, had a livery yard, and just at one point she had 4 children under the age of 5 and thought these crackers thoroughbreds were not for her. And she saw a Dales pony as part of a demonstration at a country show. And this pony, it was a bit of a shepherd and a pony, and the pony just got sort of, she dismounted in the middle of the ring and left the pony stood there while she went about and did a demonstration. And Mum thought, yep, that's what I need, one of them. So she contacted the Breed Society, and then at that time, it even is to the point now, but she wanted a ridden gelding. It's like a hen's tooth. It was so hard to get. So she was put on the waiting list at the time. And about 18 months later, the secretary at the time rang her back and said, oh, there's a gelding here. I suggest you go see him and crack on about it. So she did, and he was a gelding called Ling John Juniper. So from there it sort of grew, and we met Richie and Frida Longstaff, who are the Lowhouses stud, and they're still very much lifelong friends now. And she sort of ended up buying each of his children, as we were just coming up to sort of 10, 11 at that age, a colt foal, as we sort of got to that transition to be gelded. So we all had all of them were full brothers out of a mare called Lowhouses Anna over the progression of years. Mine was Lowhouses Sultan, who was called Tucker. So this picture is me on Tucker as a child. And we did everything. We did show. We came to the breed shows. We did that sort of thing, but mostly we just enjoyed them. We did a variety of activities, mostly pony club, and we did the breed shows. We enjoyed them. We did a bit of cross country, nothing very serious. We just grew up with them. And then from there, she already had a mare at this point called Sunnybrow Penny, which was the first of 3 mares we got from a very good breeder in Cumbria called Johnny Mawson, who's long past since now. But Penny, we had Penny maybe the middle of the 1990s, and then Richie from Lowhouses rang mum in 2000 and said, I have a good colt foal, which I'd like you to have down in Lincolnshire, where we were at the time, but you must not geld him. So from there, we just sort of ended up with this colt foal. Sorry, I'll just put the dog out. If you just bear with me 2 seconds. Sorry. So we had this colt called Lowhouses Black Magic, and really him and Penny were the real foundation of the stud and the background to sort of everything that we breed now. Magic and Penny had 5 foals together, all of them fillies. We were really fortunate. And the stud is sort of yeah, I know. We really did hit the jackpot with them. They were just and each of those 5, the older 2 didn't have a ridden career, but as I'll explain in a bit, the other 3 all have done. And they, like I say, everything's grown from there. We've had other influences on other lines, but it was Magic. So this is Magic on the right in this picture. Obviously the stallion there, and he really introduced us to showing in hand. We never did undersaddle with him. He was too busy combining stud duties, but he was a very good natured stallion. You would often take him to a show. He was champion here at the Royal Highland, bring him home, cover the next day. Then he'd go off to another show, and he was just so biddable, and so he really was just the everything to us. And that's sort of where we started. So these are this slide here is the sort of the stallion influences that we've had on the stud since then. So we had Lowhouses Black Magic, and then it was very tricky to know. It's always hard to choose where you're going next with your stallion. You try sometimes and it doesn't work, and it's being critical about what you have and what you haven't. So we were lucky. We had 3 young colts, but one of them worked out. It was this Wolsey's Abbey, and he's gone on. He's the sire of some of our successful ponies as well. We have had a grey line through the stud with the Darkdale Grey Bobby, and then so this is a son of Wolsey's Abbey. This picture here, this is Nippler James Britannia, who's just returned to us now to stand at stud in his own right. But yeah, and then we used a Castle Hill stallion for the last few years, and now we have a young colt. This is just a 2-year-old in this photo, and he's called Highcroft Emperor. And so we'll be using a mix of him and James Britannia this year. And then Midnight Rambler, who I'll explain in a minute, is our current ridden pony, will come back to the stud in the future. But really for us, we've always really focused on the mares. It's the Nippner mares most of them are proven under saddle in their own rights. The of the 5 fillies, there's Lottie and Clemmy, who are now, well, what would they be, 19, 17. But then Flora, who was the next one, no, Damask Rose was the next one, sorry. Then Flora and Heather have all been to Hoys and Olympia in their own right. And for us, it's really important. We are very much about the mares. It's trying to find a stallion to complement them, rather than having a stallion and picking the mares to them, if that makes sense. It's for us, we really, really focus on those mares. And we have maybe 4 or 5 foals a year. We just take our time picking what we want to do, and where we go. We breed from the mares every other year generally. We don't breed from them every year for various reasons. We have maybe 30 Dales ponies here at the minute. We feel 4 or 5 is our capacity to do the best and to do them justice in terms of handling and handling and the workload that goes with it. And also it gives you a chance to see if that mare and stallion combination has clicked. You don't know. By the time you come around to foal heat in 10 days after the foal's been born, you don't really know if that foal's going to shape up to be that cross has worked. So we tend to just go the every other year. So then in terms of ridden showing, this is Tudor Annie. So she was, we bought her maybe 16 years ago. She was a very good driven mare at the time. And she was, so in that top photo there, she was pulling a tradesman. That was with a breeder, Dale Harrison. And then I went on to driver and won the private driving with her probably 10 years after that first photo. This was in the centenary year in 2016. And then she was also the one that sort of really got me into the ridden showing. I'd ridden all my life, but it was the first mare that really sort of, I don't know, we clicked and we had that sort of ability. And then, so she was the Court Farm Ridden Dales Pony of the Year in early, well, maybe 2010, 12, somewhere about there. But she did everything. We used to do riding club, we used to do everything with them. And I think that's really important with any Dales pony, is the education you give them. And it can't just be about showing. They've got to be everything. And that then pays off in the showroom. So yeah, so that she's a very, very special mare to me. She's retired now, she's 25, she just hangs around. She was she only ever had 1 foal. It was a little grey, he's gelded now, he was a stallion and he has some progeny. But he is now driving in Cumbria, so that's quite nice. So then these mares, Damask Rose was my first homebred ridden mare, and this is just more photos of what we do with them and the education that goes alongside them. This is Damask Rose. So she was the first homebred Nipner pony to qualify for Hoys in 2013. She was home produced. I qualified her myself. She'd done her first show in 2010, and then she qualified for Hoys in 2013. It's a, to Horse of the Year show at Hoys is our top level ridden show, and it takes time. It's a long way from that novice show to the final. And then this was sort of, I think this, hopefully I can get this video. I'm not going to force you to watch all this video, so I'm going to scroll along. So this was the Hoys final, and this shows the level of atmosphere and the level of like craziness these ponies put up with. So I will warn you, it's quite loud. I have tried to turn the volume down a little bit on this end. So somewhere in here.
In 9th place.
I'll scroll along. Right, scrolling. Where are we at? Get them out of the way. Right.
The top 11 forward and you're still in.
I'll run her up.
Now.
Anna Pennell. Ladies and gentlemen,
That's my
please
mother
let's
and my
raise
sister. You can hear
the
in the background.
Mirthwaite Windrush.
So I'll just kill the noise, sorry. So that in that time, it was a mixed final. So you'd have the Dales and the Fells together. So yeah, but you can see sort of how much it is.
In ninth.
So what do we do now? So now we moved farms 3 years ago this July. And it has been a huge undertaking. It has been a massive undertaking, and in terms of farming, it's been a big step up. And our focus at the minute is on the farm. It's on we run quite a big flock of sheep these days. We've just finished lambing about a week ago. We have all native breeds, really: pigs, sheep, ponies, yard work to do. So these days, my riding side is much less, and we focus as breeders where we are now. So as I mentioned, we breed 4 or 5 foals a year. We are lucky enough to generally have a waiting list that allows us to fit the right ponies to fit the right owner. It works. We don't look for showing homes for our foals. It's not really what we focus on. We want the right home for the foal, but they are what we try and breed are ponies that have a good enough conformation and temperament that go on and do any job. And if they happen to want to show, they've got, in our eyes, a pony that's good enough to do that if they can produce the best out of them. But as long as they're loved and they're enjoyed, then we are happy. We still often have 1 or 2 ponies that we still own, and they'll be with riders. Sometimes it's an amateur rider. There's a professional jockey we call Sarah. If anybody on my Facebook, Sarah has, and she is professional, and it is her job. And the level of commitment that is required to compete these ponies at this level is so high. Through winter, through spring, through summer, they are out, like, not the specific ponies, but these riders are out competing every weekend. They are working. You know, you talk to Sarah and she'll have been like, oh, I've ridden 10 today, ridden 13 today, and it'll be like 11 o'clock in the morning. They are such grafters, and to compete at this level, to work hard.
Yeah, I think we're going to answer them at the end.
So now for us, we concentrate really on the breeding side, which is great. And what this photo here of these 3 foals is nice, that these 3 foals in this picture went on to be 3 of these ponies. These are all Nittner ponies that competed at Horse of the Year show. This was the 2020, what year are we? 2021 lineup, when there were 6 Nittner ponies in the Dales final, which was it's the most amount that's ever been qualified by a single breeder in any class. So yeah, so we're quite proud of them. And then I think what makes it even better is amongst this group is you've got 2 full sisters. So these 2 are both out of a Tarbell mare by Magic. 2 full brothers. So this is Nittner Invictus and Nittner James Britannia, both by Wolsey's Abbey, back to a Hodgson Lane mare. And then this chap here, Invictus, is a sire of this one here. And everybody's connected, if you know what I mean. It's every bit of our breeding. And this lad on the end, he's a youngster in here, Midnight Rambler. And he is the son of Damask Rose, who I took to Hoy's in 2013. And then this, so the photo in the bottom left, the mare and foal, that was Rosie and Rambler at the Great Yorkshire Show. 2013, 24, it's 2015. And then he's grown on to be this chap on the right. And for us as breeders, that's what we're all about. That's what we try and do. And I'll pass you across to Jill. I'll tell you about what she does.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending. I'm Jill Graham. I'm from the Kebble Registered. We're a much smaller outfit than Anna, but we still, we very much enjoy our ponies. The picture here on the left is just a view out over our farm, which is in North Cumbria, north of England, right on the Scottish border, and that hill that you can see in the distance there is actually Scotland. So we are very, very close on the border. Down in the bottom right corner, there's some of our mares and foals there. Next slide, please. Okay, can we move on?
I've frozen. 2 seconds.
Okay.
I don't know why it's frozen. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So where did it all start for me? Well, I'm from a completely non-horsey family. And I was the original really pony mad kid. Spent all my days in the local riding school, helping out, mucking out endlessly, leading ponies with small riders on, taking ponies backwards and forwards the field, all that sort of thing. And I think my poor long-suffering parents, having tried various other things like dancing classes to civilise me, finally gave up and bought me a pony. Knowing nothing at all about ponies, we bought our first pony from a dealer, and we were extremely lucky in what we got, actually. Apart from the fact that he was a crib biter and did endless damage to fences and stables and whatnot, my poor father was forever repairing stuff. He was actually a brilliant first pony. He was an unregistered Dales type, which is not why we bought him at all, but that was where the interest in the breed started. And apart from being an excellent jumper, because again we did everything with him, he was very good over fences, could jump any sort of height, but had no speed. And we used to fairly regularly compete against John Whitaker, who also lived locally to me. But he also did well in mountain and woollen classes at local shows, and that was really where it all started for us, I think. Okay, next one. And what I've done here actually is just pick out a few of the ponies we've had over the years that have had a real influence on us and our stud. And of course, our first registered Dales pony was probably the most important one. We were helped a lot by Sybil and David Lee of the Walt Royd stud, who'd seen me and Brandy at local shows basically, and invited me down to look at their ponies, and that's how our Blossom came to us, Walt Royd Blossom. So she was unschooled, I schooled her myself, and we sort of worked our way up the ladder a bit, really, from local shows to local agricultural shows, then eventually to county level. And this sort of culminated in her representing the breed at Olympia in 1984 after winning the Olympic class at the Dales Bridge Show. She's actually got some really interesting breeding behind her as well, which continues to this day in a pony called Kebroid Ruby, who's due to have her foal at the end of March. This mare was by Staten Prince, who actually features in an awful lot of Dales pony pedigrees. But she was out of a mare called Marcia's Blossom, who was by a stallion called All Fours. And All Fours does not feature that often in pedigrees. Kebroid Ruby herself has got more airlines than just that as well, in that she was out of Keysbeck Daffodil by Blossom's son, Kebroid Commander, and out of a grading up mare, which went back to days of the 24th. So Keysbeck Daffodil was actually looked very much like this pony. Actually, it was a whole bay with no white on it, but it was a section B because she was out of section C mare, which meant we couldn't at that time keep a colt out of her to run on for a stallion. And Ruby was actually her last foal and the only filly that she ever had. She's down in the West Country now with somebody a little bit younger than us, who is very keen to keep on breeding from this rare line of ponies. So that was one of our foundation mares. And the other one was this one. Having done very well with Blossom, we decided then we would get another one. And Lummus Lady joined us. She was by Heather Boy II. She was a big free-moving mare, and she carried me. In fact, that is me riding her. Side saddle. She she won quite a lot in the show ring. She wasn't the greatest put together mare, but she went like the wind and was actually extremely difficult to stop. And in fact, at one point, Carter, Jenny, Lauriston Clark ran the ring twice at a time when judges used to ride them. She was the dam of our most influential stallion, actually. Kebroid Tobago was by Ashwood Black Prince, another one that features in a lot of pedigrees. We don't breed on a large scale. We generally breed for ourselves, and we'll just sell the odd one or two. But we breed a type that we like, and they have to move for us. Okay. And the next one that really I have to speak about is Colliery Beauty II. We got it from West Yorkshire to where we are now in Cumbria, and she joined us from the colliery stud as a 3-year-old, and wasn't actually the pony that we bought. In the meantime, between buying it and going back for it, Dennis had sold it to the Queen. So he said, you better pick another one, and she was the one that we picked. She had many wins. She was that rare thing, a pony that can do it in hand and ridden at the same time. She had many wins and in hand, including the Northern Breeders' Championship in 2013, and under saddle, she was champion at the Native Pony Society championships, winning both the intermediate and the open ridden finals at the same show. She was always produced from home, but by then I'd given up ring riding more or less, and she's ridden here by Brian Williams. She was I would still have her. She's 22 and still Queen of the Yard. But she was the dam. She only ever had one foal. After we retired from showing, we could never get her back in foal. As in fact, Anna had her on several occasions to her stallions, and we tried, didn't we, Anna?
We tried.
Yeah. But she did have one foal earlier on in her career. She was by Kebroid Carnelian, who was a big bay stallion. Who is actually still alive today, that one, but he's now a gelding. She was the dam of Kebroid Onyx, who's our hoist pony. Okay. And this is Kebroid Onyx, who was a good bit bigger than her mother. She was 4th at Horse of the Year show, ridden by Brian Williams, and she's also been supreme ridden at M&M at the MPS Scotland finals at Blair Castle in 2017, ridden then by Louise Fuller. She also, after a ridden career, went on to have an in-hand career and was Reserve Supreme Mountain and Moorland in hand at Blair Castle in 2019. She also has only ever produced one foal, despite 4 years of trying to get her in foal in one way or another, with no success whatsoever. We could get her in foal, scanned in foal at 2 weeks, but at 4 weeks she was empty again, and that happened on 3 or 4 occasions. However, she did produce one foal, Kebroid Sardonyx, by Nippner Invictus, who was one of the ponies you've seen in Anna's talk, and she's our current ridden pony. So what have we got at the moment? We say we've got Kebroid Sardonyx, who's the one on the top left there. After she's had a big winning career in hand, just really started on the ridden career, as we wanted to give her time to mature. And she's 8 years old this year. She's been ridden all that time, but not really put under the cosh as far as ridden showing was concerned. So she'll be doing a 2nd year in novice, and aiming at the Picton final. Kebroid Royal Sapphire is the one on the top right there. She's our open pony and working hunter pony. She actually is a really good jumper, that one. And then we've got 2 down at the bottom who are our future hopes. The Salamire Amber, who's the bay filly on the bottom left. She's, well, largely because of COVID actually, but for 1 or 2 other reasons as well. She has never been shown, and we're just currently breaking her at the moment. So she will do some in hand at the start of the season, and hopefully just 1 or 2 nursery novice classes towards the end of the season. And then the little chap on the bottom right there is Kebroid Tiger's Eye. He's only rising 2, but we think he has great ridden potential. And he's by Kebroid Tobago, by AI. I mean, Toby's been dead quite some time now, but and he was exported to Germany. But before we exported him, Stephen was taken from him, and this must be 25 years ago. Now it's been in storage ever since. But that little chap there proves it's still viable after 25 years in storage. So we're quite hopeful about him, and still, as I say, carrying on breeding a few and enjoying our showing. Okay then, so what else do we do? Well, once we moved to the bigger farm, we'd always had the Exmoor ponies, which we've had nearly as long as the Dales, and they're actually my husband's project, really, rather than mine, but I end up dealing with them. So we breed those, and they are successful in the show ring as well. And we also have Dexter cattle and South Devon cattle, which is a big red one down on the bottom right. Okay, so that's us at the Kebroid stud.
Okay, so we're going to share this bit between us. So we're going to just start with the showing basics, and this is a very whirlwind guide, so hopefully we won't get too confusing, but please do ask any questions at the end. So this is the basics of ridden showing. What do we actually do? So you turn up to a show and you're thinking, what next? So all the ponies in the class, they enter the ring together at a walk going clockwise round. The steward and the judge are stood in the center of the ring, and the steward calls for the ponies to first trot round, and you might do, well, it depends how many's in the class, but you pretty expect to do at least 2 or maybe 3 laps around the ring, so the judge can really have a look from a distance at your pony's way of going, the action, see what catches the eye. And then they'll be asked to canter together as a group. And again, this is where the real technique is, you know, it's about ring craft and knowing how not to get blocked up by other ponies, how to show your pony. So they all canter together. And then the steward will head to a corner and instruct the class, and you change the rein. Typically, well, you do change it at a trot, and it's really important with the breed, with it being such a big trotting breed, that ability to really show your trot off is across the diagonal is pretty key. And then you pick up the canter once again on the other rein, you canter round, and then you're all called back to walk. So we've got a little video here. It was really hard to find videos of go rounds. I don't video a lot. So this is a young stallion of ours. This is Midnight Rambler at his first ever show. I must have been very proud that day. So it's his first ever show. So I videoed the go round. It's a mixed class. So there's only a few strides of trot, but it just gives you the idea of what everybody's doing. You can see the judge. I presume that's a young judge stood with them as well. So he's just trotting around, and you can see that's what they're aiming at. And then whiz through them, and then the judge will line up the ponies at one end of the arena. Sometimes they're lined up in an order of preference, and sometimes they're lined up any order. And then everybody, if they say any order, there's generally this massive scrum of ponies heading to get their place, and everyone trying to work out where's best for your pony to go. Are you out of puffs, or do you need to go down the other end and wait, or do you get in first because you're still a bit fresh and want to get it over with? So yeah, it's all quite interesting. But so then they line the judge up, and then the judge lines ponies up, and then you go and do your individual shows. Individual shows can be very, there is a very basic individual show, and there is nothing wrong with it doing a very well executed basic individual show. I'll show you it with this pony in a minute. But basically what you're aiming to do is to show off your 3 paces plus a bit of an extension in your canter to the best of your ability. And as you go up the levels, the shows can get fancier, and they do get fancier. And at some of the big shows, the judge will set a set show for the class. You know, if you've got a class of 30, 35 ponies, And if everybody had free range to show their shows off, you could be there all day. So quite often in the big qualifiers, the judge will set a show, but you are only told that at this moment when the steward or the judge is telling you specifically what they want. But this, I'll show you, this is a basic show. I'll just talk you through it. Again, you have to please remember this is his first show. So it's fine, but it's a basic show. So there we go. So he stood for the judge nicely. Few nice good strides walk. He's showing his nice walk off into trot. There's another class going on in the other half of the arena, which is what that is. So he's trotted the short side, crosses across the diagonal. As he comes to the corner, he's going to ask him to pick up canter. So he does a nice few strides canter round, and then it's straight across the diagonal again, showing off his trot, and then into canter this way. And then he tries to show a few strides of extension down there. This is quite good actually, because I was talking about this with Jill the other day, and I think riders can be very much guilty of, we are certainly, we practice and practice at home, and whatever discipline you do, you think, oh, I can't go out until I'm perfect, and perfect never exists. And then when you get to shows, half the learning is done at the show anyway. And actually for a first show, that was a really decent little show. But you can see him having a look and a little learn, and that's what it's about. It's getting them out there and seeing and learning. But that should maybe give you an idea of the basic show. He would then come back into line and wait whilst the other ponies do their shows. And then the judge will walk all the ponies back out again clockwise, and then pull them into their preference and award the rosettes from first to down the line. And then we just look at the turnout as well. The most important thing with all native breeds, but particularly with the Dales pony, is if you're turning out for the show ring, is workmanlike. Nothing flash, nothing that makes you stand out more than a pony. You are there to show your pony, and you want them to stand out. So the tack is plain, but it's designed to enhance the pony. These are three quite good images actually. So this mare on the right, trotting top right, she has quite a wide noseband on compared to say the grey gelding on the left. And I can say this because it's my mare. She has a big head, so it suits her to have a wider noseband. And there's little tricks like that you can do to just enhance and to make the most of what you've got. And then, oh, every time I do that, it freezes the, hang on, there we go. The saddle, all three of these are shown in what we describe as a show saddle. So it's cut back to show the shoulder, to clear the shoulder. It also helps with the Dales trot if there's not a great big saddle sat on the front end. It helps them to have the freedom to really move. But the most important thing is the fit of the saddle. As long as the horse is comfy, they will show themselves off the best. The riders, they're in tweed, a discreet tweed, nothing too, you can get some really loud tweeds, but these are all in nice, smart, discreet tweeds with a shirt and a tie, long boots, and the beige and the cream jumpers. No spurs. There's no M&M classes where the spurs are allowed in the UK. And with the whip, you can just see one in that top right pony is to be no longer than 30 centimeters, which is not, no, 30, yes, 30 centimeters?
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
That's right, isn't it? Yes, sorry. I was getting my conversion confused then, but yes, that's right. And fundamentally clean and tidy. Show your pony off to do them the credit and the justice. And then Jill's going to take you through the start of the showing scenes.
Yeah, just to talk a little bit really about the Dales breed shows. At the moment, we're running 3 main shows a year, and there are a number of the society areas that also run area shows. There are ridden classes at both the Spring Stallion show and the Summer Breed show. Obviously not at the full show. And many different activities at area shows. Everything from handy pony, looking hunter pony, jumping, dressage. So it's a much greater range. But really, the two most important ones there are the Spring Stallion show and the Summer Breed show. Okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we call traditional ridden classes. You will only find these at breed shows and agricultural shows based in the north of England. And the traditional ridden class is all about the trot. It's how well does that pony trot. It should be powerful and rhythmic, and there should be no cantering or attempting to canter, which we call breaking. Anna's already described sort of the go-around, but in this particular go-around, there would be no canter. And so it's purely on the trot, changing the rein, so you've got both reins. And there is an individual show as well, but again, no cantering. In that individual show, you would walk away from the judge for a few strides, go into trot a figure of 8 on both reins, making sure that you've got plenty of extension in the trot, going across the diagonals. Finish up with a really good strong trot along the long side of the ring, and then slow back to walk and walk up to the judge. Sometimes the judge may ask if you're a rein back in this class, and the rein back is a really difficult move to execute well. Yes, ponies will go backwards, but quite often it's just a shuffle and a hold back, whereas actually what you want to see is that rein back on 2 time. So the diagonal sets of legs moving together and about 4 paces going backwards. In this class, ponies wouldn't be stripped, so the judge doesn't want to see them without the saddle on. Confirmation will be judged at the time of the show. And if judges are having just a sort of a final thought about this, they will sometimes keep the class trotting round, following the individual shows when they're all walking around again, and put them back into trot and line them up from the trot. However, it will be the pony with the best trot in that class that will win. Okay, so that's the traditional ridden. And this slide here, having just talked about how important the trot is, I just want to, I've used this photograph for a very specific reason, because you can see very clearly what it is here that makes the Dales trot different and special. And there's a number of angles here I'd like you to look at really, but just to start with, look at the 2 feet that are on the ground and look at how those pasterns are flexed. The fetlock joint is nearly on the ground. It isn't on the ground, but it's nearly on the ground. And that really is the basis of all that lift that you see there. Without that spring in the pastern, you can't get the lift. So what you're looking for when you're buying any Dales pony is a nice, free, springy pastern. I would hate to see those pasterns actually get too long in the breed, I have to say. I mean, if you look at that there, you can see the amount of strain there is on the tendons that run down the back of the leg to maintain that. So if you get the pastern too long, you then can start getting check ligament problems and tendon problems also. So having looked at that, in a good Dales trot, the next thing to look at is where the point of the hock is and the knee, because that should be a parallel line. And it is on this photo. If you look at the legs that are lifted off the ground, look where the knee is, look where the hock is, and draw a line between the two, and you'll find that's a straight line. So that's the next thing that you look for. And also, if you look at the foreleg that's lifted off the ground, look down the cannon bone and it's vertical. Look at the hoof and it's vertical. So you've there got 2 angles again. Those should be absolutely vertical like that. And that's the difference between the Dales trot and the Welsh cob trot. The Welsh cob has got far more extension in the forearm than that, and it doesn't have that vertical dimension to the hoof and the foreleg. And again, you'll see the same straight line on that back leg that's on the ground. It's vertical. So that's where your Dales trot comes from. And that's why you need the good clean limbs on a Dales pony as well. Now, just to point out on this photograph here, I would actually, this pony is slightly behind the bridle. And behind the bridle, I mean that her head is slightly in towards the chest and out of the vertical. And because she's behind the bridle, she's not actually stepping forward with as much energy as I would like to see. But it is such a good photograph of the angles on the limbs there. So if anyone's got any questions about any of that when we get to the end, I'm very happy to take them. It is about mechanics of the Dales pony there. Okay.
Okay, so I was just gonna so Jill's been through the breed shows, and then without getting too complicated, I'm just going to talk through the 3 other sort of categories of shows that we have in the UK. So we have, and in terms that you might hear thrown about quite a bit, we have MPS, which is National Pony Society, BSPS, which is British Show Pony Society, and quite often their classes are called heritage classes. And then we have county shows as well, which may be a combination of MPS and BSPS and everything else. Quite often these classes are mixed with the other native breeds, and they have a varying levels within them. So your novice ponies compete together, and your intermediate, and then your open. So there's scope for every level at them. Quite a lot of these shows are qualifying shows for summer championships and also winter championships. But a lot of the focus is for the summer championships. And then occasionally these county shows are also qualifiers in their own right for Horse of the Year show, London International Show, and the Royal International Horse Show. And then you also hear about the Great Yorkshire Show. This is a picture of the main ring at the Great Yorkshire Show. And there are what we call royal shows. So there's Royal Three Counties, Royal Windsor, there's a few of them. So these are the big county shows. They're very prestigious. They're always open classes. Quite often they can be breed only classes, mostly because they are qualifying classes for Horse of the Year show, and they are competitive in their own rights. They are also brilliant days out. If you ever get the chance to come to the UK and go to one of these big shows, the Great Yorkshire Show is unlike anything else. There will be show jumping, there's heavy horses, there's livestock, there's shopping, there's a lot for the horses to deal with, but it's all part of a really good day. And these are, the Great Yorkshire Show is obviously, as a Dales pony breeder, it's a really important show for us. Well, for me anyway, I feel. And then we have the Hoys Horse of the Year show, London International Horse Show, which we all still call Olympia, despite the fact it's not held at Olympia anymore. And the Royal International Horse Show. These are the big 3 open ridden finals. They're the highest level, and you have to qualify for these. And just to give you a bit of scope on the numbers of Dales ponies that qualify for these, and I think these numbers are right, but they're there or thereabouts. So in 2023, there were 14 or 15 Dales ponies that qualified for the Horse of the Year show final. There were 13 that qualified for the Royal International final. Now that is a mixed final, so there's 13 Dales ponies, and then there was, I think there was about 7 or 8 Highlands, and then similar number of Fells, and they compete in one final. And then at the London International Horse Show, Olympia, there were 5 Dales ponies qualified, and that again is a mixed final. There was 40 ponies total that qualify for the London International Horse Show from across all the native breeds. But we have a best of breed award that is sort of, that's where you aim for at that show. And then they do place top 10 as well. So this is just a little snippet just to show you. This was Nipna Flora, ridden actually by Taylor Lewis, a girl that would ride for me a bit, doing her show at Olympia in 2018. It looks quite empty here. So we would do all the shows in the morning before the show really opened, and then they do a big presentation in the afternoon performance. But it is a special day. It's normally about 3 days before Christmas. There's no, it's either Olympia or Christmas. You can't do both. But it is quite, it's a good experience. This also, I will say, is not the best Ridden show, but you can see here, this was her last Ridden show, so this is a more
David Mitchell has given a score of 35.
Oh no.
And Heather Prescott, a score of 41. Another Dale is out here. This is number 210, Nipna Flora. Ridden by Taylor Lewis, owned by Mrs. Pennell. So
this is an example of,
the Ridden show ring.
I can't get the
Here in Olivia,
volume to go down.
for returning stud. It's a 10-year-old.
This is quite a good example of what I said about different shows when you get to the more open level, about how you're required, well, not you need to show off more, a more advanced level of training. But Flora has had a great trot, so Taylor finished with a good strong trot with her. So yeah, that's that. Oh, hang on, I'm going again. There you go, Jill, it's all yours.
Okay then, so back over to me again, just to talk a little bit about, well, Anna's already actually talked quite a lot about this, about the picture of the pony and the rider, because showing is an art, not a science, so it's not going to be the same for every pony. And no pony is perfect, and before you can start to make the most of its strong points, and I wouldn't say disguise, but less of its weaker points, you've got to know what those faults are. So, you know, when you try to pick a pony for the show ring, stand back and look at it, because there's quite a lot that can be done if you know your art to produce these ponies. Like, for example, a pony with a long back. If you've got a pony with a long back, then you don't want a small little saddle on it, you want a long saddle on it. And you want a nice big furry numnah as well, because that actually takes up quite a lot of the back. And the saddle also needs to sit quite a long way back as well, towards the middle of the pony, so you haven't got acres of back behind you. Similarly, as Anna's already said, for a pony with a bigger head, you need a heavier weight bridle. If you've got a nice pretty head, you need a nice pretty bridle. Yeah, lightweight bridle on it, and also smaller bit rings. So for a pony with a bigger head, pick a bit that's got bigger bit rings. For a smaller head, nice neat bit rings. Anna's said quite a lot already about the turnout, but I'd just like to say, I mean, look at your pony's colour and match the tweed to the pony's colour so the picture looks right. And also, rider being the correct size for the pony as well. There's no point putting a 6-foot rider on a 13-2 pony. You want your 6-foot rider on your 15-hand pony, and you 5-1 on the 13-2. And again, it's all about that picture. Anna's already said about the straight cut showing saddle, but I've popped in here a little picture of one so you can see what one looks like when it's not on the pony. So very straight cut. There will be a little knee roll under there, so hopefully you're not sort of really perched on it, but a flat seat as well. They're not very deep cut, a showing saddle, and they haven't got a huge amount of flocking, but as Anna's already said, it must be comfortable for the pony as well. So make sure there's plenty of width in it. It's much easier to get showing saddles for native ponies these days than it was. There are 1 or 2 companies that actually specialise in just producing saddles for native ponies. And there's also something called an anatomic girth there. And again, I've popped a little picture for you down there. And that rather weird looking girth actually helps quite a lot when you've got a pony whose wither is slightly, how do I put it? So that when the saddle is girthed, it should go straight down. The girth tab should be straight, but occasionally you'll get a pony, and it happens more in Exmouth than Dales, where that doesn't happen. And it's one of the things that pulls the saddle forward, because the girth groove is an advance of the wither. So an anatomic girth can help, because what it does is pop the centre of the girth back into the girth groove under the pony's belly. that line up the straps with the girth tabs on the saddle, and therefore that saddle isn't pulled forward. And if you've got a pony with a saddle that travels, it's well worth thinking about one of those. So that's just some hints and tips there on saddlery and you know, matching up your pony. Your judge doesn't get to look at your pony very much, so they need to take a sort of picture in the mind of that pony looking right. And similarly, when you come to do your show, you know, you've only got probably a maximum of 2 minutes to impress that judge. So, you know, you need to have your pony in that judge's eye. Anna's already mentioned about using ring space, and by that I mean make sure your pony isn't covered up by any of the other ponies in the class who may be on the inside. So make sure you've got a big space, put your pony in that big space and make sure it stays there so the judge can see it properly. A good walk covering the ground is another thing that judges will take note of, mainly because it's probably the pace that they see most of in a class. So when they're summing up the class of the walking around the ring, if you've got a good walk, then it can just tip the balance for you. And accurate transitions, by that we mean from walk to trot and from trot to canter, and the extension at canter. The pony must be obedient and go straight away. We don't want to be seeing anybody sort of kicking that pony into the next pace. And Anna's already said about showing the trot when changing the rein, but that can win your classes without a shadow of a doubt. I'm a great believer, actually, if you're given a free show, and by free show, you do what show you want to do, for keeping it short. The longer you go on, the more can go wrong. All the judge actually wants to see is all 4 paces, or if it's a traditional class, all 3 paces. And if you get asked to do a set show, you need to do exactly what you're asked to do. I have seen shows where the riders have just gone and done their own thing, which doesn't really impress the judge, I have to say. And just a little bit, I mean, if it goes wrong, don't panic. If it's a novice pony, you might get away with it anyway if the judge likes it. And if it's not, well, there's always another day and another show, so don't panic about it. It goes wrong for everybody. I can distinctly remember actually, and I think it would be Colliery Beauty's last class. I think it was a veteran class, and I was riding her. And she was standing at the top of the line until we came to do the individual shows, and she took out the entire lineup. She would not turn. Absolutely demolished a class of veteran horses between us and retired at that point. So it does go wrong, even for the most experienced ponies and riders.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any questions, anybody? I'm sure you'll have lots of them for us.
Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah, and I think we can invite folks to turn their videos on and use your probably use your raise hand bit, and Anna and Jill will call on you. And just a reminder that the questions for this particular presentation are around raising and training the showing pony, or training and showing the show pony. So I know we have lots of other questions for our experts. We hope to have future opportunities to have those discussions.
We do have some questions in the chat box. I don't know if you want us to start with those.
Those people who asked them could do so, yeah.
Oh, Jennifer's got a hand up. Go for it.
Thank you. I was wondering, what do you look for in a good home? Do you have a set of qualifications or things that you're looking for every home, or is it a pony by pony basis?
For me, it's a pony by pony basis. So, and we don't have any qualification requirements, anything like that. We tend to talk to people on the phone to start with, and then because we're not actively trying to sell a specific pony at that point, we normally say to them, well, come and meet us, come and meet the ponies, come and see if you actually like them in the flesh, or if there's a type, and it gives us chance to talk to them, discuss what their experiences are, what they've liked. You know, Dales ponies, they're not for everybody, and they're not, and they don't suit everybody. But if you've had a Dales pony before and you love them, then you're addicted to them like the rest of us. But it's, you know, and we know out of certain mares that from the foals they've had before, and also their mare's temperament, that they might be a bit sharper, or they might need somebody that's, you know, or from a certain line. So it's just about getting a feel both ways, about what's going to suit them and what's going to suit that pony. And also from the point of view, some people are used to foals, so we can be confident that yes, they're handled and they're ready to go, or we might have them a bit longer and do a bit more work with them before they go. And it's just setting them up right.
Thank you.
I had quite a few questions, which I put into the chat, but I was wondering how much time goes into preparing them. They look so shiny and fit. And I know you guys have a lot more land than we do, but it's more challenging on a smaller farm. Like we had a 10-acre farm. And so you know, do you go out for hacks, or are you doing dressage lessons? Like how long and what efforts do you make in order to get them show ready?
It varies from pony to pony, doesn't it? And also the age of the pony as well, and how much muscle it's got. An open pony that's been doing it for a few years will never really lose that level of fitness. So what we would do with an open pony actually is start after Christmas with it. So we're coming from the field, be stabled, rugged, clipped. We'd start fitness exercise again. So starting with walking, trotting, some lunging as well. Generally just building fitness with a view to starting the showing season around about April time. And then finishing that pony showing season around about August time, when it would be roughed off and then put back in the field for a good old break, just to be a native pony again. So that would be what I would do with an open pony to get it ready. A youngster is slightly different. It depends on the stage of development, and they all develop at different rates, and Dales ponies are particularly slow developers. So we would aim to start lunging probably as a 3-year-old, but not at canter, just at walk and trot, just so they get to learn the aids and well, poise aids, that is, and be doing something, but just doing a little bit like that. They may have done some in hand showing, or they may not. Again, it depends how good they are as a youngster, but it's quite good educationally just to get them out even to a local show, just to see what's going on in a bit of the world. As a 4-year-old, we're probably back, ride it away for perhaps a month, something like that, and then turn it out again just to think about what it's learned. Leave it out for about 6 months and then have it back in again. Start again with a build up, so you're reinforcing the lessons that it's already had, and then it should, you know, to be ready to do a little bit more then. But it does take them an awful long time to build strength, and the worst thing you can do is try and rush that process, really.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you do anything different, Anna.
Yeah, no, we would be similar. I'd say we would probably start a bit later, but that's probably more a cause of numbers of ponies and time. So we quite often will put a mare in foal as a 3 or a 4 to foal as a 4 or 5, and then we will start their work after that. And it's just given it means we've a foal to come on after, and it just gives them a bit more time to mature. And then we would do similar, but you know, we would we would back them in the school, but we would get them out we've quite a bit of parkland here, so we get them out of the school quite sharp. Particularly when they're young, we want them just out hacking forward, just thinking about just being confident in what they're doing around. And then yes, we would probably back them, get them walking and trotting happily outside of the school, turn them away again. We're terrible for turning. It's a good thing really, but we turn away.
Yeah,
And then bring them back in. Yeah, it's the benefits so much from them. You particularly find if a pony's, it's a real like sweet point in their training that you can find that they reach that point that they're doing everything you want, but you can just feel they're just like just a bit like brain blocked, and you just turn them away, let them think about it, let them grow up mentally and physically, and you can bring them back. And sometimes it's only got to be 6 weeks. But you could then bring them back and they'd be like, oh, I get it now. And you can move on to the next stage.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. By forcing it at that stage, all you do is set up a lot of resistances.
Yeah, that's
Right.
where you get the biggest troubles. That is definitely if you overdo it and do too much, that's where you hear a pony is napping or rearing or anything like that. It's because it just means their mind is full and they don't really understand, they just need the time to process, I think. And then they'll tend to start and do a novice show season, but they might only do 4 or 5 novice shows for us, and they'll be doing stuff at home. We'll be going to riding club rallies, so they get used to riding in groups in joint lessons. They'll be going, like you say, to dressage. We quite often will start off with a bit of basic dressage to get them working away from home in a slightly more contained environment than a horse show. But anything that really just gets them that basic education just all helps in the show ring later on.
With the stallion, is it pretty much the same with one that you're going to keep as a stallion?
Yeah, we Rambler actually started earlier. He was ready, so he actually started end of 4 coming 5. But we'd used him as a 3, and then he was ready for some work, so he did start a little bit earlier. And he's had every winter he gets turned away and then he comes back into it. But yeah, it's very similar, and it's just about it. Yeah, I mean, stallions are a pain. Like they can be, it is just that next level with them, isn't it? So
a lot of places here won't allow a stallion to be on premise, so it makes it very tough to get them out and about. It's really hard because you can do group rides and things, and they won't allow a stallion to be on a group ride, even though I know a lot of Dales stallions that are very sane.
Yeah, that's very tricky. The only time if I ever used to take a stallion to a riding club rally, I would just check with the other riders in the group beforehand, and occasionally you'd get one that didn't want to ride with the stallion. But no, that is tricky. That is very tricky.
Jennifer.
Do you like to, do you want to mute your, sorry, we're in the same room. Do you like to cross train your horses? So like here in the US, what we do often is we'll train our horses to, do obstacles, and then they'll also do dressage, or some people will do like English and Western dressage with their horses. And I know some people who do driving and ridden shows. And I don't know if you find a high value in having the ponies focus on one specific discipline if you're going into showing, or if you find value in doing the cross training where they're going to be, maybe they'll have some training in driving and they'll have some training in, other riding styles to really find what they're best at, and then also for educational purposes. I don't know kind of what your mix is of that. I want to get your feedback on that.
Yes, I mean, we do all sorts with ours. We do rides. My open mare also does working hunter ponies, which is over fences, and cross country as well. And she does some dressage. So yeah, we do a good mix. You can't just do showing all the time because they get fed up. Basically, you do need, they need to know that when they get out of the lorry, that it isn't always going to be a horse show, that sometimes it might be a ride on the beach or something else as well, because it just helps to keep their interest.
Yeah.
I don't specifically train them for anything else, like, the showing is our focus, I think, not dressage.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is you do we do a lot of long lining and things like that, but I would probably finish a showing career and then move on to, like, we use a lot of other disciplines in the educational process, but it wouldn't be to the same level, if you know what I mean. So we'd use the dressage to teach them to be better in the show ring, but I think because you'd have to focus on it at such a level to do well, you end up sort of going down one line. And yes, you keep them fresh by showing them other things and doing other things. But I would typically finish a ridden career before picking up something else, be it driven. I don't
So
really.
it's more just educational basic.
Yes.
Like,
Does that make sense? Yes.
building them.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
So I'm gonna, looking at the clock, gonna say if there are more questions that people have, raise your hands now so that we know that's gonna happen. Yeah, okay. So I see Sarah's got hers
Okay.
up. If anybody else, just raise your hand so that we know that those are waiting. And before we say goodbye to our guests, I'm gonna remind us that those who want to stay on at the end of the session and just chat for a little while, we really always welcome those opportunities. So Sarah.
Okay, thank you. This has been fascinating. I was wondering, like, do the ponies get trimmed at all, or are they just like left in like their fullest of their, their body hair, their manes and tails, and their feathers, and
Yeah,
how do you really get them ready to show?
as much hair as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, no trimming. No trimming.
Don't trim it. No, don't trim it. I mean, tails going into winter when they're going to be in the mud. I mean, just to take the bottom off them so it's grown again by spring. But that's probably. Oh, and clipping is allowed. So if you're working a horse during the winter, you generally need to put some form of clip on it. There are native breeds in this country where clipping isn't allowed, but Dales has always been a working animal, so clipping is allowed. Although you wouldn't clip out a youngster, one that isn't being ready. Yeah.
You go up to the cheeks. You don't take the head off when you're clipping.
Okay, see, they've all got like the goat hairs and everything.
Yeah, no, it's all got to stay.
Yeah, whiskers the lot.
Yeah. All right.
There he is.
Thank you.
I think there's a couple questions in the queue if you want to answer those. Barbara had one and I had as well.
Do your ponies ever go to the US? No, just because they haven't. There is one in Canada somewhere, but no, just no, not no reason, just haven't.
Yeah, likewise. I have exported a pony to Germany, but not to the US so far, anyway.
And then the other one is, with all the saddles in the US, most have quite a lot of blocks in the front and behind the leg. What saddles do most show in at the UK shows, and do they also have blocks in front and behind? Do you mean like brand names or?
Well, I was just wondering, because here it's almost impossible to find one like on the photo that you had. I mean, it just seems like the big popular thing is to have those blacks in the front, the blacks in the back that hold your leg into place, but then it doesn't really allow you a lot of freedom and to move your legs sometimes in the way that they're needed. So I just wondered if there's particular brands or ones that you use that, you know, that you usually go with? Because it seems like in the pictures I saw, you don't have a lot of black there.
No, true. Yeah, we tend to use a very dark Havana saddle. Now I have to confess, I am that person that has one saddle that just seems to fit every horse, and it is my very trusted and pride of joy. But it's a Barnsby saddle, which I don't even know if the company's about, but other companies are Black Country, Filed, Saddlery. They're very popular. Ideal. I don't know. You might, yeah, Ideal. Now I don't know over, like my sister has a dressage saddle. She does a bit more dressage, and her blocks are on like Velcro, so she can pull them off.
Yeah, mine are too, and I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Barbara's, you've got a Black Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think the trend is going back in the opposite direction now, but it's going to take a while. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, some of the dressage saddles look more like jousting saddles now. They've got so much there.
So much bulk. Yeah, so much bulk.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas.
I'm guilty of having just had a friend actually take the stitching out of the blocks on my used Loxley, and it doesn't look very nice under the panel, but it's really nice to have them gone.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the picture that I showed you was actually a filed saddle. That was a filed Samantha. It was the type of saddle. They do a number of different ones, but they do some in some good wide fittings as well. So and they're actually very good at fitting the awkward native. But I mean, that's not an awful lot, to be used to you in the States, because you can't really fetch your pony over filed to fit. But it's certainly a good place to start if you need in a flat showing saddle. If you just talk to them, they've seen
They'd
most.
work off templates, I think, as well, and they would know a US contact, I would think.
Right.
So are there other questions that folks have? We'll take another couple of minutes. Anything else?
I think there's one more, maybe not. Oh, no. Okay, we're good.
It's a comment. But people, we could do the saddle conversation probably with horse people for years.
Yeah.
Those things that goes. I wonder if very quickly that just the folks on here could just introduce themselves to our guests so they know who they've been talking to. This recording will be, if we still have your permission, Jill and Anna, available on our DPCNA website. I don't know if there's any part of it that we will need to trim. The questions are really useful. Folks want to stay on and listen to them, they can. We've had a lot of requests for that, just saying that a Sunday afternoon is an awkward time for them. And it certainly is your property. It's up to you to do that. And to also tell the rest of the group that we've had some generous donations to DPCNA through this, and we will be giving a percentage of that back to the DPS in Jill and Anna's name for all the work that they've done to put this together.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Very much indeed. Yes.
So say hello. You can just pop out and say, just maybe tell our guests where you're located. And
You want me to start?
I think Barbara's got her hand up, so go ahead.
Go, Barbara.
Oh,
I can't hear her.
Yeah, you have to
Barbara
unmute.
needs to mute.
Okay.
I'm Barbara Peck, and I'm in Vermont. And we bought a home across from the Hamilton Rare Breeds Foundation, which used to breed the Green Mountain Dales ponies. That they came to England, and one of the line was Delumi, that line, and I can't remember some of the other ones, but so I recognize some of the names from the old Dales pony history. Anyway, I have Green Mountain Jilly, so she's fabulous. And she is at a new barn this year and has converted my trainer, who is anxious to find at least 2 Dales to bring to her farm. So that's why I asked if your ponies ever come to the US, because she's on the hunt.
We only breed about 100 a year, as you know, so.
I know, it's hard to
Usually
find.
They're very hard to
She
find.
said everybody needs a Dales pony.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
agree.
definitely.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Who's
I'm
next?
Serato or Clavinus. I'm going through a divorce right now, so my name is changing. But I'm in Washington State in the US and have been breeding Dales ponies since 2018. So just got into them then, absolutely love the breed. And they're different. I appreciate all the different characters that we have here, but they're wonderful. And thank you for this presentation. It's very informative. I just have to find a show.
Yes.
We're working on that.
Yeah, right. That's good. I've got my son here too. You want to come over here, Vigo? He may
Vigo's
come.
Vigo's a great Dales pony rider.
Just get up. There you go. There he is.
Hello.
Hi, Vigo.
He is 8 years old. He's been riding on his own on the Dales since he was 4.
Well done. Really
Oh,
good.
Good job, Vigo.
And we've all really enjoyed watching you grow on the ponies, Vigo.
Good.
Go ahead and just jump in.
Okay, I'll jump in. I'm Sarah Isham. I live in central Vermont in New England, and my husband and I have 4 Dales ponies. I started off by leasing one that he was training to drive about 15 years ago, and then I leased him and drove him and rode him. And then I bought my own about Red Prairie Gandalf about 7 or 8 years ago from Hamilton Rare Breeds. And 3 years ago, we bought Green Mountain, Croydon, Elliott, and Forest. So we have a group of 4 geldings, and we're really, really smitten with that breed.
Oh, you've got a team there if your husband's driving.
Well, we have 2 5-year-olds that might turn into a pair. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be fun. My husband's the trainer, so we'll see how that all goes.
Nikki, you want to unmute? Unmute on the bottom.
got it. Okay.
There you go.
I'm Nikki Scottman. I live in Micanopy, Florida. I never dreamed in a bazillion years that I was going to be a breeder of rare ponies, although I'm not really. But I bought Canadale's Endless Patience from Meg because we lived across the fence from Xana Jackson when she was in the States. And so she introduced me to Dales Ponies. And then at the same time, she was introducing our friend Catherine to Dales Ponies. And then Catherine brought Unique from the UK, and Unique's baby is now our soon to be 4-year-old filly. So I have 2 mares.
Very good.
And I just am a hobbyist. I have no intention of becoming an actual, like Pippa's been pregnant before. We've got to deal with Catherine Stallion. So, we will try to do our best to contribute to the Dales Ponies population, but not on a large scale.
Nothing wrong with small breeders.
Yeah. Who's next? Is it my turn?
I think so.
Sure. I'm Catherine York. I first got into the Dales when I decided to give up my warm bloods because I was pretty sure they were going to kill me. And I just had some health issues and I didn't have the strength anymore to manage them. I sold, and then I thought, well, maybe my riding days are over, but I went, maybe not. And so I looked for a more docile breed that I could gain back my confidence on. And I found Zana up in Micanopy. And I went to her farm and rode Carol, who was not for sale. And then she became my first pony when Zana decided she was going to move back to England. So I bought Carol, and she was already pregnant with Ziggy's first foal. and we were just in love with Maverick when he was born. He was the first blue roan in the US, and I just fell in love, decided to import 2 more, got an Ernwell and a Grisburn, and I just can't say enough about the breed. And I, like Nikki, didn't set out to become a breeder, but I guess I'm breeding. So, and my whole vision and goal, and I hope, because I'm like Shuna going through a terrible divorce, I am hoping to be able to keep the ponies and continue to breed, because for me, my goal was to just breed and share the love and get new people like Jennifer involved in the breed. And I'm so fortunate because Louisa at the Horse Talk Show and a lot of people in Ocala have really recognized what a special breed this is. And we've had a lot of publicity to help us, you know, show more interest in the breed. So now when I go out riding, people go, "Oh, that's the Dales Pony lady." So I'm like, I just want to continue, but we'll see what, you know, everybody pray that I can still keep the ponies.
We will.
But
Jennifer, that's your follow on.
yeah.
Jennifer?
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Oops. Let me mute. Okay, got it.
So my name is Jennifer Mims. I just got my very first Dales pony this year. I've always had like quarter horses or some mix of quarter horses. I've got an appendix quarter horse and I have a Percheron quarter horse cross, and they're massive. Like they're, you know, 16 hands and, you know, 1,400 pound horses. So they're really big. And I found Catherine in December 2020. We went and visited her farm. I actually ironically just got a book from my mother-in-law and it had a fell pony in it. And I was like, oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I have to learn more. And so I started doing research, and then I found the Dales pony and I was like, oh, they're a little bit bigger than the fell and they don't have as many health issues. And then I looked up Dales pony breeders in the area, and Catherine happened to live a half an hour away from me. So my husband and I went over to Catherine's farm, and she happened to have 2 babies on the way. And one of them happened to be a filly that we then bought after she was born. And that's Florida Dales Moonlight Sonata. We call her Melody. And she is the most lovely, wonderful foal I've ever met. So I'm just smitten with the Dales pony breed. And we've got Unique and Lady Jane here at our farm while Catherine is transitioning, which has made me fall in love with the Dales even more. So I'm a forever Dales fan. So we'll be planning on how to get more Dales ponies in the future. I just can't find any fault with them. They're just a wonderful breed, and they're just so calm and easygoing. And I never really thought I would stray away from like really big, tall, huge horses. And I think the Dales are just a great all-arounder, and I love their personality and their demeanor.
Kelly, are you still with us, Kelly? I know she had to go feed.
Mhm.
Maybe not. Monica?
Kelly's still here.
It's Monica.
Hi. So I just purchased a Dales gelding. He's been gelded now. So this is going to be all new for me. But horses aren't new to me. I have a spotted draft with 16 one hands, a Welsh pony, and 2 miniature horses. One of which was in foal when I bought her as a companion, and I ended up with another one. So I did a lot of training. He's now 8. He drives, he does everything. And actually all 4 of my animals are therapy horses. So they work alongside my practice, my occupational therapy practice. But my draft and my ponies they're getting older, and I'm getting older, and I wanted to find a breed that was sturdy, but a lot smaller because the ground is too far to fall on. I don't want to break anything.
Yeah.
But I love the training aspect, and I just want to enjoy. I don't show. Maybe I will show. I don't know. But I just want to enjoy and bring this pony along. And everything I've heard about the Dales, it has been amazing. So my adventure will start probably in a week or two when he comes. Yeah, and I'm from Massachusetts. Everybody seems to be all over the place. So it's going to be fun, I think.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And if he can be a therapy pony someday, great. But I have a feeling I will be retiring before he will be ready. That's okay.
Who did you buy, Monica?
Like,
Who did you buy, Monica?
Black Shadow Spectre, Buddy. In upstate New York, you know, Mackenzie.
Yep.
So I went to the equine affair, the Mass Equine Affair. It was over 2 years ago. And when I was looking at the gypsy breed, I was looking at all the different breeds, and I walked away saying, I've got to look up the Dales and see what breeders are close to Massachusetts or in the area.
Right.
I started calling around, and I spoke to Mackenzie, and I put my name on a waiting list, forgot about it for a year. Seriously forgot about it. And then she called me like in April, the baby's born. Do you want to see? I'm like, okay. So that's when the adventure started. So I have watched him grow up over the last year. So I'm kind of excited.
Right.
It's coming up April 20th, and we'll both be celebrating our birthdays.
Nice.
Yes, it's a birthday present to me. And I know it's going to take years of training. I know that, but I'm okay with that. Really okay. I love doing all the groundwork.
Thank you. Deb. Deb.
She needs to unmute.
Debbie, unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted. It took me a moment to put it. Am I? Yes, I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Deb Trudell. I live in Western Massachusetts. I was horse crazy from ever, and my father refused to buy me a horse. So it wasn't until my younger daughter was very interested in horses, and we happened to be able to get a Morgan horse, and she was lovely. She was older. She was a great first horse for everyone. And when we lost her, it kind of like soured us that, oh, we can't go through this again. So went without a horse, hadn't ridden in 20 years. Meg and I knew each other. We taught together. And one day we're at a conference and she goes, you've got to come see my new pony, my new Dales pony. And can you help me? Because he had an injury. It was winter time. And she said, it would be great if you could help me. This horse just was so stoic. I was like, he's standing like a statue. And this big fuzzy pony with this gorgeous mustache. Well, to make a long story short, he got me back riding. And so I get to go up when I can, because I'm not in a position to have a horse where we are, but I get to borrow Lad whenever I can. And I love that pony to death. He's wonderful.
Mm.
And I haven't met one that I haven't liked yet. In fact, I still remember Pippa. Nikki. I got to name her nickname.
Nice.
And Janet, if you're still with us, I think everybody recognizes your name.
Yes, I'm here, and it's been a most interesting evening, and so good to have so many people overseas that are interested in our ponies. So very good. Thank you.
You're the best.
And just quickly, I'm Meg Robbins, and I'm co-president of the Dales Pony Conservative North America with Rebecca Foley, who is in Indiana, and I think without power at this exact moment, which they have been most of the winter, it seems like, on and off. And we have a wonderful board and a lot of really interested folks who have really helped us create this conservancy and make it a place where our goal is to educate people on this side of the pond, to be able to have every single foal that's born registered with the Dales Pony Society in the UK, even after years of some conflict around that. And it's a remarkable group. And I will say that our Facebook group, we always have the commenting that we are the only nice horse Facebook group. People are so kind to each other and so helpful and always reaching out, and such a delightful group of people. So it always feels as though the Dales Ponies will always end up in wonderful hands, no matter what happens. We're so grateful to you for joining us today and all the work that you put into this, Anna and Jill. It's must have been massive, but it's not going to just inform us. It's going to be informative for everybody here. And our goals that we would like to have at some point, I think I explained to you earlier, is we'd love to have a couple of UK judges come and do regional shows for us, where we really can have the fun of having people who know the ponies well help us to look at their assets and the things we need to think more deeply about, and also have the fun of really doing a proper show, which is very difficult to do. But so we look forward to perhaps seeing you this side of the pond at some point as well. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you, and
With that,
everybody
we'll
for coming.
say good evening and go feed your ponies.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's been so nice to put faces to names, and you know, some of us have like not known but online for a long time, if you know what I mean. And it's nice to meet everybody. And yeah.
And also nice to speak to such a group of enthusiastic.
Yeah, absolutely, Jill.
Yeah,
that love the ponies as much as we do. It's it's really good.
Yeah, the ponies are the best. Thank you.
Can't
so
get a
much.
better pony. Maybe we'll see some of you in August. I'm coming over.
Yeah, good. Really good.
Right. And we will be at yours, Anna. We've already talked about it, so make a day. Put out.
No problem.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so
for the
much.
invite.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you again.